Discover spine-chilling Halloween tales, 7 terrifying stories revealed from the cursed shadows. As the vibrant autumn leaves descended like crimson whispers in Willow Creek, Sarah felt the tightening grip of dread. Halloween was approaching, and families donned laughter and decorations, but guilt racked her heart. The delicious aroma of pizza permeated her small apartment while she ran late-night orders to make ends meet, but each step toward cheerful homes made her anxious. Her son, Tommy, coughed softly, his tiny body struggling against the oppressive air, a victim of the fall chill that tugged at his asthma. One night, weighed down by burdens, she delivered to Mr. Jensen, her jolly neighbor. But his jovial face morphed when she caught him staring deep into the gnarled woods, lost in a trance. Deep, rhythmic chants resonated, hollow and chilling, as if he summoned something unspeakable. Sarah swallowed hard. Fatigue must be clouding her vision, right? Still, something pulled at her gut, urging her to turn back. She ignored it, but worries swelled with each pizza she delivered. Days passed, and shimmers of laughter faded into whispers of fear. Children began to disappear in eerie silence, each leaving behind only echoes of vanished joy. Panic simmered in the streets, parents grew apprehensive and huddled together, sharing uneasy glances. Sarah's heart raced with their heartbeats, knuckles white around the steering wheel as she delivered pizzas down familiar avenues that now felt laced with sin. Desperation ignited her instincts. She rushed to Willow Creek's quaint library, dust swirling like specters around her as she combed through bubbling tales of local lore. Pages cracked under her trembling fingers. An ancient spirit bound to the very woods that terrified her called for Halloween sacrifices. History spoke of dread, buried beneath neglect and small-town ignorance. She needed to uncover more. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Her stomach churned as rumors of possible connections to Mr. Jensen surfaced. He was more than just friendly. The way he lingered at dusk, it gnawed at her mind like a festering wound. Panic clawed at her throat. Local authorities laughed away her fears, brushing her off as hysterical. They closed their eyes to shadows lurking too high for them to comprehend. With Halloween looming, darkness embraced the streets. Sarah's heart pounded in sync with the ominous silence that smothered the town. Whispers spat from corners, and insecurities festered in her chest. As she ventured deeper into the woods, the trees loomed like dark sentinels, their branches twisting, eager to ensnare her. In this treacherous night, filled with forgotten echoes, she confronted Mr. Jensen, her heart an unsteady drum. Tommy's voice pierced the silence, fragile and trembling, scuttling behind her lingering thoughts. As moonlight sliced through the trees, illuminating lost faces, those of the vanished children, she faced a horrifying reality. Loathsome shadows danced around them, crackling with unearthly whispers. What would she sacrifice to protect her child? And in this quiet horror, who among her neighbors stood as the real monster? The terror ripped through her heartbeat, the forest around them thickening with invisible dread. A chilling reckoning waited just beyond the edge. The specter of Willow Creek was alive, and it wouldn't rest until it fed again. The wind whistled through the trees, a mournful sound that echoed the fear swelling in Sarah's chest. Her thoughts raced as she stared into the empty gaze of Mr. Jensen. What had once been the friendly smile of her neighbor now revealed nothing but a void, an abyss that filled her with gut-wrenching dread. Mr. Jensen, her voice cracked, barely louder than the rustle of dying leaves. What have you done? Shadows writhed at the edge of her vision, creeping closer, as if the very darkness was alive, drawn to the fear radiating from her. She caught a glimpse of hollow eyes staring back at her, children's faces twisted in silent screams. Panic flooded her mind. They weren't just lost, they had been taken. "Come closer, Sarah," Mr. Jensen urged softly, his voice smooth and inviting, like syrup laced with poison. "The woods are calling, the spirit seeks a new body, no." She shouted, stepping back instinctively, dragging Tommy with her. He clung to her leg, trembling, eyes wide with panic. The warm smell of pizza clung to her clothes, but the scent was now tainted with decay. Without warning, the chilling chant from earlier swelled in volume, drowning her thoughts. It reverberated around her, a hypnotic rhythm that made her skin crawl. Join us," echoed in the darkness, discouraging her from fleeing. Every instinct told her to run, yet part of her felt a strange, magnetic pull toward Mr. Jensen. "Help them, Sarah," he coaxed. "You want to save your son, don't you?" In that moment, Sarah remembered the reading at the library, The Sacrifices. She felt that creeping despair tighten its grip around her heart. The unspeakable horror of the woods suffocated her hope. She couldn't let Tommy be next. "No!" Sarah screamed. With an adrenaline-laced burst, she spun on her heel, wheeling Tommy away from the terrifying sight of Mr. Jensen and his haunted plea. The shadows skittered closer, snapping and growling, as if a pack of wolves were stalking their prey. "Mommy, I'm scared," Tommy cried, clutching her tightly. Her resolve cracked as she felt the heat of his tiny form next to her. "Stay close. Don't look back," she urged, pulling him along the narrow path leading deeper into the woods, away from the looming darkness. Branches clawed at her like skeletal hands, trying to drag her back into the void. The chanting grew in intensity, drowning her senses. A cold sweat broke out across Sarah's brow as she stumbled over roots, her breath coming in jagged gasps. She had to find a way out. She had to protect Tommy at all costs. But as they burst into a small clearing, the darkness surrounded them. The air grew chill, and shadows danced along the edges, closing in like a living quilt of dread. The trees leaned closer, their gnarled branches stretching out toward her, almost alive. Her heart pounded fiercely against her ribcage. "Tommy, I need you to trust me," she whispered, her voice cutting through the anxiety. Determination surged through her, forcing her legs to move despite the terror pulsing through her veins. She couldn't let the forest claim another child. Not her child. As they drew into the heart of the woods, the whispers morphed into laughter, a twisted mocking tune that chilled her to the bone. Was it the spirits? Or the ghosts of the children? Each footfall echoed like a death knell. Dread squirmed in her gut. Would they reach safety? Or was the forest conspiring against them? Suddenly, a figure stepped from the shadows, an outline just familiar enough to twist her heart into knots. It was him, Mr. Jensen, and the vibrant menace on his face shattered her remaining hope. "What's the matter? You won't leave without saying goodbye." The specter was closing in, and in that sickening crunch of reality, she realized the truth: this was just the beginning of the horror. With the darkness surging around them, Sarah clenched her jaw in resolve. She would fight. She would confront whatever lay ahead. But the question remained: what lengths would she go to save Tommy from the terror lurking in the shadows? The forest remained thick with menace as she took a step forward, ready to face the unimaginable. Sarah's heart raced. The sound of Mr. Jensen's laughter lingered in the air, its coldness wrapping around her throat like a vice. She couldn't let fear dictate her next move. "Tommy, hold on tight," she gasped, gripping her son's hand as they charged deeper into the forest. Shadows swirled, menacing echoes of lost souls weaving through the trees, whispering secrets that threatened to unravel her mind. She darted through the dense underbrush, branches snapping back like fingers trying to seize them. Every rustle and crack seemed amplified, a reminder of the horrors lurking just beyond reach. What was this place? Was it truly alive, craving their presence? "Mommy!" Tommy whimpered, his little voice cracking under the weight of terror. "Are they coming?" She squeezed his hand tighter, barely keeping herself together. "No. Just keep going." But doubt gnawed at her. The laughter faded momentarily, swallowed by a darkness that seemed all-encompassing. They stumbled into another clearing, but this one felt different, heavier, darker. The air was thick with a sickening sweetness, the kind that churned your stomach and stole your breath. Then she saw them, figures, shadowy and twisted, emerging from the tree line. Children, she realized with horror, their faces shrouded in shadow, eyes wide and unblinking. They stood, silent but pleading, a haunting echo of innocence tarnished by despair. Sarah's breath escaped her as the forest grew silent. The chanting returned, a bone-chilling lullaby that made her skin crawl. Join us, Tommy, cover your ears." She screamed, but it was too late. The voices slid into his mind like needles, tugging at the corners of his will. She could see it in his eyes, a flicker of understanding mingled with dread. "Mommy, I can hear them," he stammered, his small frame trembling. "Don't listen." Just panic clawed at her voice as she turned back to the dark figures. "We need to move. Now." But as she took a step back, the ground beneath her shifted subtly, as if the earth itself was alive. The shadows lunged forward, reaching out with icy fingers. "Stay away!" Sarah shouted, twisting them away from the encroaching darkness. But it was a slow retreat, like running through molasses, every step dragging them further into an unseen trap. Suddenly, Tommy screamed, a piercing cry that echoed through the trees, "Mommy, they're run!" Sarah shouted, but it was too late. The shadows had formed a barrier, a twisted body of dark branches and wailing leaves. Her heart raced faster now, each beat threatening to implode as fear infused her veins. Desperately, she spotted a narrow path, a sliver of hope winding its way to the next clearing, brightened by a weak, flickering light. "Tommy, come on." As they barreled toward the narrow path, the dark figures surged, hands outstretched, their faces morphing into grotesque smiles. "Stay with us," they cooed, their voices a haunting harmony. But she would not give in. She pushed forward, adrenaline flooding her senses, and yanked Tommy out of reach as they tore through the barrier of shadows. The shrieks and laughter multiplied behind them, but she didn't dare look back. Breaking free into the next clearing, they gasped, lungs burning. The palpable darkness diminished slightly, and the flickering light grew stronger. It seemed to pulse with life, a beacon amid despair. But even in that moment of relief, dread clung to her skin. What awaited them in that light? Was it salvation, or something far worse? With uncertainty hovering in the air, Sarah clutched Tommy close, breathing heavily, taking in their surroundings. Was there truly an escape here, or was this merely the next layer of horror? Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forth, revealing a woman with hollow eyes and a chilling smile. "Well, aren't we the brave ones?" she said, voice smooth as silk but dripping with malice. Sarah's heart dropped. What more did the forest hide? It felt like a sick puzzle, and she didn't have all the pieces. Join us, join us." The chant returned, a chilling reminder that their nightmare was just beginning. "Let me help you," the woman said, gliding closer, her every movement fluid yet unsettling. "So few ever escape this place. You're lucky to have made it this far." Her lips curled into a slow, sinister smile that sent icy tendrils of dread snaking down Sarah's spine. Tommy pressed against his mother, clutching her dress, his little body shaking. "Mommy, I don't like her," he squeaked, his voice a trembling whisper. "Neither do I," Sarah murmured under her breath, scanning the surrounding darkness for an escape route. The forest felt alive, pulsing with an unseen anticipation, as if it thrived on fear and despair. "Look at them, darling," the woman continued, her voice almost sweet, dripping with false warmth. "Those poor, lost souls, they need friends. You could be their friends. Wouldn't you like that?" She gestured vaguely towards the dark figures still lurking just beyond the light, waiting, watching. "Stay away from us!" Sarah shouted, holding Tommy tightly to her side. The shadows shifted closer, their bodies congealing into one grotesque form, crying out in dissonant harmony. "Join us! Join us!" echoed in her mind, pulling at her resolve. "You don't want to join them, do you?" the woman asked, her tone now low and mocking. "Such a lonely existence without friends. I can offer you sanctuary, shelter from these cruel shadows." A flicker of hope ignited in Sarah's chest, but she crushed it down. "What do you want from us?" Her voice was low, tight with fear boiling just beneath the surface. "Only what lies beneath the surface," the woman said, stepping closer, eyes glinting like dangerous jewels. "Every creature has a price. Your son, he has such a spark about him, don't you think? A willingness to play, to join in the fun. Stop. You can't have him." Desperation filled her throat, choking her words. The woman's smile faltered ever so slightly, a crack in her facade that exposed something dark and menacing. "You're mistaken if you think you have a choice here," she hissed, voice suddenly sharp like broken glass. A chilling breeze swept through the clearing as shadows closed in. The air thickened, suffocating, making it difficult to breathe. Sarah felt the weight of 1,000 eyes, all watching, all waiting for her to falter. "Run!" she screamed at Tommy, the only command that could break the icy grip of despair. Her instincts screamed at her to flee. With renewed urgency, she turned and pulled him along the edge of the clearing, away from the dark figures and their insidious chant. But the light flickered, dimmed, as they ran. The forest's shadows surged with unnatural life, clawing and grasping, eager to reclaim them. Every step felt like a battle against an unseen force dragging them back. "You can't escape." The ominous voices echoed behind them, synchronized in terrifying rhythm. Breathless and panicked, they zigzagged through gnarled trees, heart pounding so loudly that it drowned out everything else. How far could they run? Desperation clawed at Sarah's heart as she pushed through tangled roots and thick underbrush. "Mommy, I can't!" Tommy cried, slowing down, his tiny legs unable to match her frantic pace. Sarah turned, realizing they were losing ground. In that fleeting moment, the shadows coalesced into a form near the clearing's edge. "Join us," it whispered, chillingly familiar. "I want to let you," she yelled back, clutching Tommy's hand tighter than ever. But doubt crept in. What if there was no way out? What if they were already trapped? As the forest thickened around them, Sarah caught a glimpse of something, another figure, an outline against the oppressive dark. It stood still, watching them with hollow eyes like the woman. Was there more? "Mommy, please!" Tommy begged, his face streaked with tears, confusion, and terror. The shadows stirred behind them, a roaring tide of darkness. Just as they thought they couldn't run anymore, Sarah spotted a narrow trail diverging from the main path. It led into even darker woods, but she felt a gut instinct. "Tommy, this way!" she cried, turning toward the path, desperate for a glimmer of safety. But as they moved, the shadows lunged forward with even greater urgency, the chilling chant escalating into a deafening crescendo. "Join us! Join us!" What would she choose? Safety and betrayal, or fight to break free into the deepest unknown? Heart racing, Sarah took a deep breath and plunged deeper into the night. "Mommy?" Tommy's voice quivered, lost amid the panic. "Trust me." But could she trust herself? With every step into the darkness, a new question loomed, haunting and insistent. Would the shadowed threat escape them, or would they escape it? The trail was barely discernible, choked with roots and underbrush, leading deeper into an even thicker darkness. Sarah pulled Tommy along, their breaths ragged, each inhale heavy with dread. The sinister chant followed them, a haunting echo that seemed to weave itself around their legs like a viscous fog. She could feel the shadows reaching for them, fingers of blackness scratching at her heels. "Mommy, I don't want to go this way," Tommy whimpered, glancing back nervously. "I know, sweetheart, but we have to keep moving," Sarah whispered fiercely, forcing her voice to stay steady. As they plunged further into the gloom, the trees closed in, their gnarled branches toying with the twilight sky like skeletal hands. The shadows morphed around them into twisted figures, flickering in the corner of her vision, but when she turned to face them, they vanished. A sudden thought screamed through Sarah's mind: what if they were coming for Tommy? The weight of her responsibility crushed her, nearly halting her steps. Each second felt like a lifetime. The shadows were relentless, curling around them as if waiting for her to falter, to lose her grip. "Mommy!" It was too late. She had let go. Tommy stumbled, his foot caught on a root. In a heartbeat, the forest grew teeth, a wild cacophony of whispers and laughter nearly drowning her resolve. "Run! Get up!" Sarah urged, but the pull of the shadows was more potent than the instinct to flee. To her horror, Tommy clutched her leg, eyes wide with terror. "I can't. Please!" Sarah shouted as the shadows surged closer. The air felt electrified with a terrible energy. The chilling realization sank in: these weren't just shadows but twisted souls doomed to wander, and now they wanted to claim them too. "Join us!" they cried in falsetto harmonies that sent chills down her spine. With a fierce determination, Sarah yanked Tommy up and flung him gently ahead. "Go! I'll be right behind you." Fear gripped his expression, but he obeyed, sprinting down the narrow path. As she chased after him, the darkness encroached. The shadows were everywhere, snatching at her, pulling her back to a place she instinctively knew was worse than any nightmare. They raced through the thick brush, branches tearing at her clothes, the ground beneath their feet growing softer, almost like a thick sludge. It felt alive, pushing back against them as if the earth itself was complicit in the horror. "Mommy! I can't see." Tommy's voice, so small and frightened, tugged at her heart. A distant glimmer of moonlight pierced the canopy ahead, though it flickered and dimmed like a dying candle. "Just keep running, Tommy. I see the light," she shouted, desperation imbued with sudden hope. In that brief moment, she felt the shadows shrink back, but it was deceptive. Their chant morphed, twisting, echoing around her, drowning out her thoughts. "Flee? Or join us?" Heart pounding, she pushed harder, her feet pounding against the ground like drums of war, determined to reach her son. The shadows swelled, clawing, ripping at her mind. She felt fleeting touches, icy and sharp, whispering her name. "Sarah, Sarah!" The pathway narrowed, and as she sprinted, the trees began to thrum with a heavy heartbeat, synchronized with the echoing cries of the spirits swirling around them. Almost there. Suddenly, Tommy stumbled again, this time plummeting to the ground, crying out in fright. "Mommy, help!" He was so close to the light now, yet so far away. "No!" Panic surged through her veins. In one swift motion, she dashed back, wading through the thick clinging shadows to scoop him up. She could feel the darkness surge at her heels like a living thing, desperate, furious. As she turned back toward the light, her breath hitched. The light flickered again, and she saw something or someone standing at its edge, a figure silhouetted against the radiance. Was it an enemy or a savior? "Sarah!" the figure called. A familiar voice mingling with 1,000 others, layered with the promise of hope and the threat of despair. Could she trust it? Could they break free together? The question thundered in her mind as she fought against the darkness enveloping them both. A heartbeat echoed. Would the figure lead them to safety, or to their doom? Only the shadows knew, and they weren't telling. "Mommy!" Tommy cried, his small hand gripping tightly to hers as if it were a lifeline. The flickering light ahead seemed to pulse, making the shadows dance wildly like spirits caught between realms. "Hold on!" Sarah urged, her heart racing. The figure loomed closer, the voice echoing again, "Sarah." But it was different this time, a hesitant sorrow mixed with urgency. As they sprinted toward the glow, branches clawed at Sarah's arms, scraping her skin, each snag mirroring the chorus of terror swirling around them. Shadows ricocheted off tree trunks, reshaping into twisted faces grinning with malice. They weren't just lost souls, they were mocking them, luring them into their trap. "Mommy, I'm scared." Just a little bit further, she managed to choke out, her voice strained. The urge to flee was overwhelming, but so was the bond she had to protect. Closer now, she could see the details of the figure, a woman, pale as bone, adorned in a tattered white dress that billowed like smoke around her, her eyes devoid of life but shimmering with a strange light. "Come closer. I want to let them take you." The specter beckoned, but the chill in her voice sent dread tingling down Sarah's spine. Was this woman a spirit come to deliver salvation, or destruction? "We can trust her, Mommy." Tommy's innocent faith shone through, but Sarah hesitated. Could trust lead them out, or would it ensnare them deeper into this nightmare? The shadows were closing in, relentless and hungry. Seeing the fear in Tommy's eyes, she felt fury kindle within her, battling against the rising despair. "No!" she shouted at the darkness, "we will not become part of you." In a swift, desperate decision, she pulled Tommy against her chest, blocking out everything except the flicker of hope. "On 3, we go." The shadows snarled, feeling the distance between them shrink, so she pressed on. 1, 2, Mommy. The light. The figure's elongated shadow slithered forward, arms extending towards them with an eerie grace. In that moment, Sarah saw the truth in the suffocating dark. The light was both a beacon of hope and a mesmerizing snare. 3. With all her might, she wheeled around, darting back towards the flickering light. The woman's voice surged, a sharp cry that cut through the air, "You can't escape." They plunged forward, the world around them becoming a haze of darkness and blinding light. She clutched Tommy tighter, rushing toward the glow, but the closer they got, the more the light flickered as if it were alive, almost breathing. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, roots writhing like serpents seeking to pull them down. The edges of reality wavered, and Sarah felt her sanity stretch thin. "Mommy, I don't like this." Tommy whimpered, panic rising in his voice. "Trust me, Tommy. Just hold on." She forced her legs to move even as the shadows clawed at her ankles. Each step felt heavier, resistance pulling at her as if the air itself throbbed with evil energy. "Join us." They howled, the song of the damned wrapping around them like chains. And then it happened. The light surged forward, a blinding beacon, washing over them in warmth. But within it, she glimpsed fleeting images, faces from the forest, a twisted assembly of agony. The glow slipped through her fingers like sand. "Mommy, look out." At that moment, they stumbled through the light, but instead of safety, it felt like falling into a chasm. And suddenly, the light dimmed. Where were they? The ground was no longer beneath them. Shadows swirled like a tempest, and in the midst of it all, Sarah felt the icy fingers of despair grip her heart. The figure stood now at the edge, watching. It was smiling. Welcome, and in that instant of dread realization, Sarah understood, this was only the beginning. What had they stepped into? The air shifted, thick with despair, as Sarah and Tommy landed with a thud on dark, soft soil. The ground beneath them felt wrong, alive, pulsating, as if it were a vast organism breathing beneath a shroud of darkness. "Mommy, where are we?" Tommy's voice trembled, a quiet echo against the oppressive silence. The horrible weight of their surroundings pressed down on Sarah, as shadows crept closer, elongating and curling, whispering dark secrets that scratched at the edges of her sanity. I don't know," she admitted, her own heart thundering in her chest. The edges of her vision blurred, flashbacks chasing away her focus, reminding her of why they had been running. That voice. That figure. All the dread rolled in like a fog. She tried to gather her thoughts, but all she could feel was the gnawing pit of fear in her stomach. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it an unnatural chill. It circled around them, teasing and taunting, sliding fingers along her skin, sending shivers down her spine. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely, pulling Tommy tighter against her side. The shadows around them seemed to shimmer with anticipation. "Look." Tommy pointed, his small voice high-pitched and quivering. A faint glow pulsed ahead, a dim remnant of the light they had chased. It flickered like a dying star, hinting at both reprieve and danger. "Maybe it'll lead us out," she suggested, trying to instill some semblance of hope. They moved toward the glow, each step heavy, the ground still alive beneath their feet. It felt like they were wading through thick, sticky darkness. But as they drew nearer, the flickering light bent and twisted, revealing not a path but a pair of eyes glowing, malicious. The brightness temporarily surrendered to darkness, showcasing monstrous figures emerging from the foliage. Their faces were obscured in shadow, but the emptiness in their eyes was unmistakable. "Sarah," it was a whisper, echoing deeply around her, wrapping around her mind. The sinister figure beyond the light was multiplying, as if the shadows were birthing nightmares. Sarah's chest grew tight, panic clawed at her throat. "Tommy, run!" she shouted, adrenaline surging through her limbs. She turned on her heel, but the shadows surged forward, blocking their escape. They felt like cold hands, grabbing, pulling, tugging them into the depths. "No!" Sarah fought against the darkness enveloping her, her instincts roaring to life. But every effort to break free sent her slipping further into despair. Shadows swirled in dreadful patterns, echoing their wails, "Join us! Join us!" In the chaos, she caught a glimpse of Tommy's terrified face. "Mommy, help!" he cried, the light of innocence dulled under layers of fear. The whispers became a cacophony of commands and lamentations, the air thick with a growing malice that wrapped around her. "Stay behind me!" She reached out, but the shadows throbbed, laughing, as if they could sense her vulnerability. Suddenly, from the depths of darkness surged another form, brilliantly bright yet wickedly familiar, the pale woman from before. Her mouth twisted into a nightmarish grin, and Sarah felt a sharp pang of recognition. She was the embodiment of suffering. "You belong here, Sarah," the woman cooed, her voice dripping with a mixture of seduction and despair. Each word slithered into Sarah's ears, drowning her thoughts. "No!" Sarah yelled, clutching Tommy tighter, unwilling to yield to the darkness beckoning them. But the woman's voice shifted, now layered with power, commanding. "Every soul here is bound to the forest. Embrace the darkness. You are not alone." The ground bubbled, shadows twisting into hair-raising shapes, encasing Sarah and Tommy in a web that felt more like a cradle than a trap. "Mommy?" Tommy whimpered, his small hand slipping from hers. "Tommy!" Sarah screamed, her heart dropping into an abyss, desperately lunging toward him. As she reached out, tendrils of darkness wrapped around them both. For a fleeting second, she felt their warmth, their connection, before the shadows snarled, dragging him away. "No!" Terror surged through her. But it wasn't just fear that coursed through her veins now. It was the spark of hate for the darkness that had stolen her child. "I want to let you take him," she roared, defiantly facing the malicious shadows. And just as the dark threatened to consume her, a new light flickered to life in the distance, stronger, brighter, and filled with a sense of rhythmic urgency. Was it truly an escape or another deceitful snare? With newfound determination, she surged forward into the light, but the shadows hissed, their voices rising in a crescendo of rage. "You can't escape." And then, as she plunged into the brilliance, everything turned white. What awaited her on the other side? Was it salvation, or had she just traded one nightmare for another? The world redefined itself in a blinding flash, colors swirling before Sarah's eyes as she was thrust from darkness into an abyss of light. But this wasn't the warmth or safety she expected. The brightness pulsed violently, changing hues like a strobe light caught in a horror show. Her heart raced as the light began to shatter, breaking into slivers that fell around her like shards of glass, each piece cutting into her existence. "Mommy!" A whisper drifted on the air, soft yet urgent, threading through the haze. It was Tommy's voice, but something about it felt distant, echoing as if he were miles away, not beside her. "Tommy?" Panic clawed at her throat, forcing her to spin in search of her son. The light morphed into twisted shapes, filling her vision with visions that pulled her deeper into the maelstrom. Within the chaos, she caught glimpses of familiar faces distorted with anguish, faces twisted like caricatures drawn from nightmares she couldn't recall. "Mommy, please." His voice sharpened into a desperate cry, sending ice through her veins. The connection was fading, she felt his warmth slipping away. "Hold on, baby. I'm coming." Sarah willed her legs to move, pushing forward, her feet stumbling through the disorienting light. It felt like wading through heavy fog, each step a battle against an unseen force tugging her back. The colors sparked to life again, growing brighter and hotter. She charged against the blinding torrent, her eyes squeezed shut, despite the fear that she might forever remain lost in this chaos. But before darkness could reclaim her, an unexpected sensation danced across her skin, a lightness. A freedom. It beckoned her, tugging her forward, igniting a flicker of hope. A shadow flickered within the light. The figure coalesced, eventually forming the pale woman from before, smiling wickedly, her eyes glowing with an unsettling joy. "You think you can escape, Sarah?" she taunted, her voice echoing eerily. "This is just another layer of the trap. Leave us alone." Sarah screamed, defiance surging through her. The light crackled ominously in response, flickering, as if waiting for her resolve to falter. But the pale woman only chuckled, the sound suffocating. "You're so close to finding out the truth, so close to understanding your fate." Behind the woman, the light surged, forming a shimmering portal that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Another glow, this one swirled with shades of purple and silver, began to pierce through the fabric of the light, revealing images of Tommy, trapped within the tendrils of shadow. He was fighting against the same darkness that had subsumed her. "Tommy!" Desperation flooded her veins, pushing her to surge forward. The portal imploded with a thunderous roar, and she screamed as she was thrown against an unseen barrier, her body colliding with a force stronger than her own will. "I can save him!" she shouted, her voice cracking with urgency. But even as she lunged toward the flickering portal, the shadows streamed around her legs, wrapping tighter, laughing, mocking. They whispered tales of betrayal, secrets that clawed at the corners of her mind. Sarah clutched at her temples, shaking her head to drown them out. "No! I am not yours!" she cried defiantly. In one final, desperate attempt, she thrust her hands toward the portal. "Let me through." The moment her palms met the energy, a tremendous pulse rippled through her, an electric jolt as the shadows recoiled, momentarily daunted. The pale woman screeched as she dissipated into the light, leaving a vacuum of chilling silence, an ominous dread swirling back in. But Sarah knew. She could feel the pull of Tommy's presence, raw and real, weaving through the fibers of reality before her. With one mighty push, she launched herself into the pulsating light, not knowing what lay in wait. Would she find him? Then, a heartbeat in the darkness reminded her sometimes, hope can be the most dangerous kind of despair. As the world around her twisted back into clarity, she was met with a scene that stole her breath. Where was she, and more importantly, where was Tommy? The anticipation swallowed her whole, a heart-stopping fear that something ancient and malevolent still lurked in the shadows, waiting. What awaited them in this new realm? The air was thick, charged with an unnatural energy that made Sarah's skin prickle. She landed on cold, damp ground, the shock of it snapping her focus back to reality. A fog snaked around her feet, curling like ghostly fingers, urging her to move forward. Shadows danced just out of her sight, skittering away whenever she tried to get a closer look. Anxiety gnawed at her gut, every instinct screamed something was wrong. A low moan echoed, vibrantly alive in the silence. It was the sound of grief, fear, a mother's agony. Sarah's heart thudded against her ribs as she turned. Who was suffering? Where was Tommy? Tommy! She shouted, her voice cracking, swallowed by the thick, damp air. The mist swirled, shifting as though it had a will of its own, blending into the encroaching darkness surrounding her. She stumbled, her feet slipping on the uneven ground, and scrambled to steady herself. The moaning grew louder, morphing into whispers, voices overlapping, each one more desperate than the last. Help me! It was a child's voice, punctuated by terrifying fear. Please don't leave me, another echoed. The gut-wrenching urgency steered her deeper into the haze. She needed to uncover the source of these cries. With each step, she felt the shadows coiling tighter, their fingertips reaching out, trying to draw her away from her mission. And then, she saw it, a faint light flickering ahead. Hope surged, but with it, a gnawing dread trickled in. What kind of light could exist in a place like this? Sarah steeled herself and moved closer. The light pulsed like a heartbeat, casting long, jagged shadows against the stone walls surrounding her. As she neared, she noticed the faces shrouded within the darkness, their features twisted in torment, crying out to be freed. Mommy! Help! Tommy's voice sliced through her, electrifying her heart. She raced toward the light, and as she did, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of wails that pounded in her ears. They were angry. They wanted her to turn back. Hold on, I'm coming. She yelled, her voice firm yet trembling with fear. The light drew closer, morphing into a figure, a small child with dark hair, just like Tommy. But something was off, something unholy about the way his smile twisted cruelly. It was Tommy, yet not. The shadows licked at his feet, wrapping tighter with every step she took. Mommy! I'm right here. He beckoned, his voice laden with a strange echo of glee mixed with sorrow. Tommy! But as she reached for him, the figure dissolved into shadow, revealing an empty space where he once stood. Cold dread filled her veins. Where are you? Save yourself, save us! The whispers morphed into a melodic chant, pulling at her consciousness. They were each a plea, an ultimatum. The sound surrounded her, drowning out her thoughts. She had to fight it, she had to find him. The glowing sphere of light began to flicker and fade before her, shadows swirling angrily, eager to reclaim their prey. Tommy! She shrieked, redoubling her efforts, desperate to understand the malicious game they were playing. The ground shook beneath her, and Sarah felt herself fighting against a pull deeper than just fear. The ancient force that had ensnared her child now wanted her too. In that moment, she glimpsed what felt like a door, a possible escape. But at what cost? Could she leave without Tommy? Torn between love and survival, she hesitated just long enough for the shadows to spring. They lashed at her legs, cold and razor-sharp. With a final scream, she lunged toward the fading light. Mommy! The cry echoed, a last gasp of hope before it turned into a wretched howl. And as she plunged into the blinding light, she felt her heart shatter anew. What awaited her on the other side of the darkness? The blinding glow enveloped Sarah, its searing brightness threatening to pull her apart. She squeezed her eyes shut, focusing on Tommy's face, his laughter echoing in her mind. She had to find him. She would fight. When the light finally receded, she found herself in an open space, a surreal landscape painted with eerie greens and ominous purple skies. Fog rolled over the ground, tendrils creeping up like fingers longing to hold her still. The air tingled with electricity, the hum of dissonant voices wrapping around her. Tommy! She cried, scanning the horizon for any sign of him. Her heart raced, every instinct driving her forward. She could feel the shadows lurking at the edges, whispering promises of despair, but she pushed them down. There was no time to falter. Mommy. His voice was small, fragile like glass shattering in the silence. She turned, almost frantic, and saw him standing under the twisted branches of a gnarled tree, pale as moonlight, surrounded by darkness that seemed to cradle him. The shadows danced just outside her reach. Tommy. I'm coming. She sprinted towards him, heart in her throat, but with every step, the shadows swelled, stretching out, trying to pull her away. Don't look back. Tommy called, eyes wide, filled with terror and an unexplainable sense of joy that cut deep. With all her strength, she pushed through, her feet pounding against the ground, the whispers intensifying as if they were a relentless tidal wave of agony. She could see him closer now. He was only a few feet away, but the shadows yanked at her ankles, slowing her down. Tommy. Hold on. In a flash, Tommy disappeared behind a swirl of shadows, his figure swallowed by darkness. No. Panic surged through her veins. She lunged forward, grappling against the unseen force. Desperation drove her every sprint. She couldn't let it claim him too. The shadows shrieked, a storm of demonic laughter chilling her blood. Join us. Join us. Echoed in her ears, taunting her agony, but she pushed through it, arms flailing through the murky darkness. I want to lose him. She screamed, a defiant vow slipping into the storm. Suddenly, she stumbled across a clearing filled with ethereal light more vibrant than before, illuminating the terror around her. Mommy. I'm here. Tommy's voice rose above the cacophony, a fragile beacon amidst despair. He stood at the heart of the glow, arms open, pleading. There he was. She could feel the warmth radiating off his little body, the shimmer of safety. But around him, shadows wove in and out, coiling like serpents, ready to claim their prize. She breathed deeply, drawing strength from the love that throbbed in her heart. I want to let you take him. With renewed resolve, Sarah lunged toward Tommy, shattering the barrier of shadows. The light engulfed them both, exploding like fireworks in the dark, a burst of warmth that pushed against the encroaching freeze of despair. As the darkness recoiled, Sarah felt Tommy's small body collide with hers. Their embrace was electric, a bond stronger than the suffocating grip of the darkness. Mommy, please. He whimpered, pulling away momentarily, his eyes wide with fresh tears. We're together now. That's all that matters. She assured him, clenching him tightly. Let us go. With fury burning in her chest, she turned, charging back toward the light that promised escape, the shadows hissing, boiling in rage, reaching for them with claws of despair. The glow pulsed like a heart, urging them forward. Stay strong. We can break free. Sarah shouted, pulling Tommy along as the shadows lashed out, scrambling to reclaim their prey. Just a few more steps. Hope blazed fiercely, a fire igniting in her chest, empowering her limbs. Join us. Never. They burst into the light together, breaking the boundaries of the dark realm. The shadows screamed and writhed, but Sarah didn't stop. She propelled both herself and Tommy through the light, feeling it pierce through her, seeping into every fiber of her being. Suddenly, everything went still. The warmth enveloped them completely, drawing them into a space of blinding tranquility. Time felt suspended, as if they had crossed into a different world, one free from the weight of shadows. And then it faded. As their vision cleared, Sarah found herself standing in her small kitchen, soft morning light spilling through the window. The smell of pizza filled the air, a sharp reminder of ordinary life. Mommy? Tommy's voice broke through the silence, sweet and innocent. Sarah turned to him, heart racing. He was there, safe, warm, whole. Relief surged through her. Trembling, she knelt down to embrace him tightly, tears streaming down her face as the shadows retreated into the corners of her mind. We did it, baby. We're safe now, she whispered, buried in the softness of his hair, the warmth of his small form against her chest. Tommy pulled back, eyes bright with innocent joy. Can we eat pizza now? Sarah chuckled, the weight of terror lifting slightly. Yes, sweet boy. Let us enjoy our pizza. But as they settled down, a chill danced across the room. The curtains fluttered without wind. A dark whisper curled through the air, echoing faintly in a distant timbre. Join us. Sarah's heart raced. The shadows were never far away. Let us stay together, Tommy. No matter what. And as they savored their pizza, Sarah vowed to face whatever shadows lingered ahead, determined to embrace the warmth of their love, no matter how deep the darkness. Together, they could brave anything that threatened Willow Creek. And so, amidst the shadows and light, they found a fragile balance, one that would breathe life into their laughter and shield them from the lurking dread. Remember this moment, cherish it, share it. You need to subscribe now for more stories that challenge your soul. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm the way it feeds on suspense. Flood the comments section with your reactions, fears, and theories. Every thought matters, truly. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with 5 friends who need to witness this story unfold. Your support determines the future of what comes next.